Most believe poor leadership is the ultimate killer of success. But Machiavelli might grin and suggest it only eliminates the weak, while the strong and cunning simply adapt and prevail. They don't engage stupidity head-on, knowing that arguing with incompetence is akin to wrestling in mud. Both parties emerge dirty, but only the idiot enjoys it. Instead, Machiavelli's wise disciple, the one who truly grasps the nuances of power, learns to survive, maneuver, and ultimately triumph under such circumstances. Because if you can thrive in the shadow of fools, no master, no matter how tyrannical, will ever crush you again. The first principle Machiavelli would murmur to those trapped under inept leaders is simple. Never let on that you see the leader as a fool. You might think you're clever for dropping subtle hints or expressing faint traces of contempt, but Machiavelli cautions that fools possess a hypersensitive radar for perceived disrespect. While they lack true wisdom, they've honed the ability to sniff out threats to their fragile authority. The moment you expose their mediocrity, they'll act, not because you're wrong, but because you've shattered their carefully curated illusion of control. Your priority then isn't to correct their ignorance, it's to endure and fortify yourself silently. Inept leaders are starved for validation. They live on a steady diet of recognition, so give it to them cautiously. Let them bask in their imagined grandeur while you discreetly guide the outcomes. This is what Machiavelli would call the illusion of loyalty, a finely balanced performance of compliance and admiration masking a deeper strategic resilience. Beneath this veneer of calm submission, you're mapping the real power dynamics, who drives results, who can be bypassed, and how to align your actions without bruising egos. The truth is, incompetent leaders rarely implode quickly. They linger in power because fear or dependency sustains them. Those who thrive under their rule aren't headstrong rebels. They are meticulous strategists. Those who watch quietly, adapt skillfully, and position themselves long before the inevitable collapse are the ones standing strong amid the ruins. Machiavelli believed that when dealing with foolish rulers, one must prepare for uncertainty, act as though luck and circumstances might betray you at any moment. Relying on an unstable system? Dangerous. Trusting a fool's promises? Foolish. Expecting merit to prevail? Naive. Instead, create parallel systems. Build quiet networks of allies, valuable skills, and essential knowledge outside the formal hierarchy. No matter how upside down things may seem under poor leadership, the engine of competence, the unsung individuals who keep everything functioning, remain steadfast. These pragmatic operators are your true kingdom. Seek them out. This is where most people falter, wasting energy on venting frustrations, complaining about bosses, or gossiping over perceived ineptitudes. Every moment spent reacting emotionally allows them to maintain control over your narrative. Machiavelli would urge you, replace frustration with observation. Study them as a creature studies its predator, not with rage, but with calculated precision. What patterns define their behavior? What triggers outbursts? What errors do they recycle? Through this unflinching observation, you gain silent power, the power of foresight. Their predictability becomes your leverage. If you can anticipate a fool's moves, you can gently guide them without them realizing they've been steered. This is the essence of soft manipulation, a skill far more effective than brute force. Fools shouldn't feel pushed or compelled. Let them be lured by their arrogance into decisions they believe are theirs. Imagine chess where your opponent thinks they're playing checkers. Show them they're wrong and they'll flip the board in frustration. play along instead, and you'll quietly orchestrate a checkmate while they remain oblivious. Machiavelli valued discretion above all else. In chaotic environments ruled by incompetence, silence is your strongest shield. Words wielded carelessly can become weapons used against you later. Let others flounder in noise and emotion while you remain composed. In the messiness of misgovernance, composure often masquerades as authority. Over time, people will begin looking to you, not because you hold a title, but because you're the only figure exuding calm amidst disorder. To Machiavelli, survival isn't about hiding or surrendering. It's about refining controlled invisibility, remaining unnoticed yet untouchable until the moment is ripe. Let fools underestimate you. Their misjudgment grants you freedom to move undetected. Their failure to recognize your strength becomes your ultimate advantage. But perhaps there's a greater lesson here. Machiavelli didn't view foolish leadership as a mere curse. Under competent leadership, the path feels smooth. Support is steady, guidance clear, and your efforts acknowledged. But under incompetent leadership, survival demands self-reliance. You learn to think strategically, maneuver subtly, and wield influence without recognition. And when the inevitable collapse arrives, because incompetence always self-destructs, you find yourself positioned as the natural successor. The key? Patience. Instead of fighting corruption head-on, embed yourself within it. Offer discreet solutions, let others claim your ideas, and allow them to believe in their own wisdom. Over time, you become indispensable, the unacknowledged foundation that others instinctively turn to when instability strikes. Power gathered this way is quiet but unshakable. Machiavelli himself highlighted the virtue of timing. He likened fortune to a river. Tranquil phases require preparation. Turbulent ones demand adaptation. Chaos, then, becomes less an obstacle and more a mask. Amid their clamor and pursuit of validation, you focus on results and progress unnoticed. However, Machiavelli also warned of a subtle danger: moral superiority. Arrogance is poisonous. When surrounded by foolishness, it's tempting to see yourself as untouchable. Yet, the moment you consider yourself above stupidity, pride makes you vulnerable in another way. The Machiavellian perspective doesn't waste energy moralizing errors. It seeks opportunity in them. Every flaw in leadership, a lack of vision, inconsistency, or ego is fertile ground for leverage. Consider this scenario: a boss who thrives on chaos, constantly changing plans, rejecting structure, thriving on drama. Most people grow frustrated and attempt futilely to change such a leader. But the Machiavellian adapts. They repackage old ideas as new ones, feeding the craving for novelty while maintaining continuity behind the scenes. By finding stability amid unpredictability, they establish themselves as the one reliable rhythm amidst disarray. That said, there's a fine line between navigating disorder and enabling it. Machiavelli didn't endorse losing integrity. Rather, he advocated using perception tactically. It's possible to function among fools without becoming one, playing along externally while remaining steadfast internally. This requires detachment, not from emotion, but from ego. You stop seeking validation from flawed leadership, insulating yourself from its corrosive effects. What breaks most people under poor leadership isn't systemic dysfunction, but personal degradation, the sense of being overlooked or undervalued. Machiavelli would remind you that recognition is secondary to resilience. Your presence isn't for accolades, it's for preparing quietly until the moment ripens for change. Visibility breeds envy under tumultuous leadership, so caution is vital. Stand in the shadows while others chase attention and expend their energy vying for fleeting praise. Observe patiently, because fools often telegraph their demise through predictable patterns. The true victory lies not in rebellion, but in readiness, to rise precisely when the crown inevitably topples. Beware the lure of open defiance or dramatic confrontation. Foolish leaders thrive on conflict. They mold it into spectacle where they often emerge unscathed despite their faults. Victory comes not from engaging them directly, but in outlasting their chaos. A quiet rebellion, marked by strategic cooperation and silent moves, is more effective than loud resistance. Ultimately, the defeat of poor leadership doesn't arise from revenge or retaliation. It stems from enduring relevance. Surviving foolish rule without succumbing to it renders you uniquely prepared to lead when others clamor for stability. Machiavelli's teachings do not advocate fleeing dysfunction, but mastering it. He'd argue that even incompetent leadership has lessons to offer about human nature, power dynamics, loyalty under pressure, and the collapse of failing systems. These hard truths expose what successful leadership often conceals. Once you've observed power crumble through mismanagement and hubris, you'll carry a sharper understanding of how empires rise and fall, and how to position yourself at the center of what comes next. When fools hold power, they tend to thrive on displays of loyalty, smiles, small compliments, agreement during meetings. Give them these surface-level gestures, but never lose sight of who you truly are. Maintain a mental boundary between the face you present and the truths you carry. Niccolò Machiavelli would remind you that those who express every truth they observe rarely last long in the courts of power. It is the ones who carefully choose which truths to reveal and when who end up controlling such spaces. There is an understated art to this approach. When an incompetent leader issues a misguided directive, do not confront them head-on. Instead, ask thoughtful questions that guide them toward reevaluating their stance, allowing them to believe their shift in perspective was their own insight. Compliment their ideas as a prelude. That's a great point. What if we also tried and subtly offer your better alternative? They may take the credit, but over time, others will begin to notice a pattern, that their smartest decisions often bear your influence. Meanwhile, you continue to shape outcomes quietly while they remain absorbed in their own self-importance. When they inevitably make mistakes, resist the urge to resolve their missteps too quickly. Timing, after all, is critical. Allow the problem to become sufficiently visible for others to take note, but not so severe that it spills over onto you. Then step in, solve it efficiently and without excessive fanfare. Machiavelli would call this the power of rescue. People remember those who saved the day, not those who issued warnings before disaster struck. Fools rarely thank prophets, they only celebrate their saviors. This is how you build trust without threatening authority, positioning yourself as the dependable figure who restores order amidst chaos. Respect begins to form around you organically. Others start approaching you for solutions before even seeking out the leader, and you accept this discreetly, avoiding outward displays of dominance. Recognize this paradox. Fools often sabotage themselves by trying too hard to appear intelligent. The Machiavellian mind understands that its strength lies not in showmanship, but in precision. Let the leader deliver 10 overwrought speeches while you make just one calculated move. Let them chase applause while you position yourself strategically. In silence, your presence gains weight. People notice its impact even when unspoken. Over time, even the most oblivious fool begins to connect the dots. They come to realize, whether consciously or instinctively, that things function better with your involvement and unravel without it. Their reactions will vary. Some may grow wary of you, while others will depend on you more heavily. Either way, both scenarios can be leveraged to your advantage. Paranoia exposes weaknesses, while dependency grants influence. Yet, Machiavelli would remind you that merely surviving incompetent leadership is not enough. The objective is to refine your ability through it. Navigating such circumstances sharpens skills like patience and restraint, qualities more potent than any overt weapon. This process resembles training in darkness. When light eventually returns, your vision is unparalleled by those who have never endured such challenges. Crucially, that poor leadership above you might serve as a deliberate test of your readiness for power. Many claim they are fit to lead until they are subjected to following orders under deeply flawed systems. It is how you conduct yourself in these moments that lays bare the true strength of your discipline. The key is quiet construction amidst the chaos, not spiraling into cynicism, but steadily laying the foundations of your own empire beneath the noise of incompetence. Machiavelli famously observed that building on the whims of people is like building on mud, but when dealing with fools, you are working with mountains. Their predictability is your greatest advantage. Unlike the fickle loyalty of crowds, fools operate within consistent patterns once understood. Decipher their behavior, and it becomes a tool to wield continuously. Amid this volatility, you master rhythm, knowing exactly when to speak up, when to step back, and when to disappear altogether. Timing becomes precision power. Speak too early and you're seen as a threat. Speak too late and you're irrelevant. But speak just as structures wobble and offer direction amidst collapse. You're suddenly indispensable. This fine balance separates the Machiavellian strategist from someone merely clever. There's even more depth many overlook. Surviving foolish authority isn't just an external game of politics, but also an internal battle. You must confront and conquer your own impulses, the urge to expose, criticize, mock, or prove yourself right at every turn. These urges represent the fool within you, attempting to undermine your strategy. Machiavelli's brilliance lay not just in manipulation, but also in profound emotional self-control. When navigating corrupt or incompetent environments, resist the most dangerous emotion of all: moral outrage. Outrage makes you loud. Loudness draws attention. Attention under poor leadership is fatal. Instead, practice restraint with religious fervor. Let them believe they are winning debates while you adapt outwardly without compromising inwardly. Never remind others that you always knew. Let them come to that realization on their own. Let history softly confirm what you understood in silence. You endured where others crumbled. In the end, Machiavelli's lesson isn't about cruelty or deceit. It's about mastering oneself amidst chaos. It's recognizing that life will often place you beneath those who are less competent, less perceptive, or less deserving. And yet, you're left with two choices: curse the ignorance, or use it to your advantage. Fools are not obstacles. They're reflections, revealing who we choose to be in their shadow. You can let them embitter you, or you can rise above them and grow stronger in their midst. That is the real triumph, not merely surviving those who fall short, but transforming yourself into someone so resilient, so composed, that no future fool could ever disturb your peace. And when that peace arrives, something peculiar happens. You find no hatred remains. You've outgrown them. What once felt like oppression now feels like preparation. Every condescending remark, every irrational demand, every insincere smile you had to muster molded you into someone they could never become. You gained patience without passivity, strategy without malice, detachment without apathy. You learned the rarest of powers, mastery over yourself in a world dominated by people governed by their impulses. This is, as Machiavelli might describe it, the highest form of strength, not in overthrowing, but in enduring. The mastery of remaining steady while others unravel, of taking subtle actions that appear inconsequential but shift everything subtly over time. While the fool seeks power for validation, the wise seek power to attain freedom, freedom from control, chaos, and external influence. That is the ultimate evolution, turning every insult, every absurdity, every wasted encounter into momentum towards self-sufficiency. One day, you'll realize you don't need their approval, their system, or their name. You'll have built your own. Machiavelli never intended for you to serve fools indefinitely. His teachings guide you to study them until you no longer require any master. Their failures reveal how power deteriorates. Your survival reveals how it can be rebuilt. But beware of one final trap: revenge. When you gain power, you'll feel the temptation to belittle those who once oppressed you, to voice all the words you held back. Yet Machiavelli would disapprove because vengeance isn't strength, it's regression. If you stoop to humiliate them, you fall back into their game. True victory lies in quiet substitution, not noisy retaliation. You don't prove them wrong, you render them irrelevant. You don't destroy them. Instead, you embody what they could never achieve. Nothing punishes a fool more than seeing your calm success as they fade into obscurity. When those they once ruled over turn to you with genuine respect, earned through action and not demanded, they'll know they've lost. By then, everyone will see that your patience wasn't passive weakness. It was silent power in its purest form, the kind that builds empires unnoticed until it's too late for anyone to stop it. Their downfall becomes your ascent. So if you're stuck under poor leadership today, don't despair. Observe closely, learn constantly, perfect your craft in silence. Build the foundation of something greater while others remain distracted by trivial games, because your time is coming. Machiavelli's game was never about displaying power. It was about becoming indispensable. Position yourself as essential, dependable, and discreetly skilled, so when their world begins to crumble, everyone instinctively turns to you to steady it. That's when power shifts, not through loud proclamations, but through subtle recognition. If there's one lesson to live by, it's this: you don't defeat fools by arguing louder, you outlast them. Chaos is fleeting, but true competence endures. Let their noise dominate the space. It only amplifies the weight of your silence when the moment arrives. So you persevere, you wait, you prepare, not with resentment or despair, but with calm confidence. Because while others chase fleeting glory, the Machiavellian focuses on shaping a lasting legacy. And once that legacy is firmly established, no one even remembers the fools who sought to control him.